Well, good morning, everyone. It's March 31st, 2025. Tomorrow starts April. And April is an interesting month. It's the cruelest month, according to T.S. Eliot in his poem, The Wasteland, which I do know about because I was an English major in college. But I was a mediocre English major, so I'm not going to discuss it other than to say that a lot of things happen in April. It's the time when there's a lot of beautiful rebirth, and we have flowers and trees and grass is growing and we have sun. And I mean, here in Germany, it tends to be more like March because you get beautiful spring weather and then it turns to crap for a while and then it goes back. And by the end of the month, it's really nice and everybody's hanging out in their beer gardens. But today, it's actually looking a little bit like it's going to get really stormy. And there tends to be a lot of sleet this time of year in April. In Germany, you tend to get a lot of hail and sleet, and then it will be sunny. Sometimes we even get snow, but not so much where I'm living now. But anyway, I'm digressing, and I don't mean to. Like everybody else, I heard about Trump and his talk about a third term. And I really feel like that's something that you can't really discount it because he's said things and done things that we never thought he would do. But you also have to keep in mind the reality of things. Today, he speaks like somebody in fourth grade who has trouble passing language arts class. And he definitely is not as sharp as he was. I never really thought of him as a sharp person, but he's less sharp now than he was 10 years ago. So I wouldn't worry too much about him being a president for a third term because I just don't think he'll either not be alive anymore or he will simply not be coherent. And even as a shadow, even as the mirage of leadership that he's kind of turning into right now, he won't be convincing. And I also really don't think that J.D. Vance will be filling his shoes because J.D. Vance has all the charm of a well-used and molested Chucky doll. So I don't think that he's the one. There may be somebody else in the wings that'll be coming up, but you don't want to borrow too much trouble. And one thing that I have learned from being around the narcissists in my life is that they have a tendency to treat life like a can of soda that they must keep shaking. And anybody unfortunate enough to be in their sphere, which unfortunately is most of us in the world right now, they do this to keep us on edge, to keep us from stopping and thinking and using logic and critical thinking skills. Because this is how they keep everybody under control. If everybody is constantly embroiled in a chaos or crisis situation, then there isn't much time for you to stop and breathe the air and enjoy the springtime, if you're not being choked by pollen, that is. I just want to encourage everybody to try not to freak out too much. I know it's easier said than done, but it is something that I think is very important. This morning I woke up to a comment from a friend. It's one of comments that I get from a lot of people. I have a problem with depression and anxiety, and I get down. And so when people start talking about how Trump has destroyed the country and it will never rebound, that to me is kind of like death. I start wondering why I should continue to get up every day. If that's the future, if what these people are saying is true, then why get up every freaking day and feed the dogs and take walks and argue with people on Facebook and make music videos? And yet I still do it. And it's mainly because there are people in my life, mainly my husband, who's a mensch, who want me to be here with them. And so I have to believe that this is not going to last. I also know this logically. Trump is certainly not the only person that has done what he's doing. If you look at history, a lot of the powerful countries have had leaders like Trump. And quite a lot of them ended up moving on and better off in the long run. I'm not saying that I think that it's a good thing that we have Trump. However, it may be a necessary part of our development, because you must consider that the United States is still a young country. We're not even 250 years old yet. I live in a country that's very, very old, and there are buildings here that date from, like the 11th or 12th century, and that really kind of puts things in perspective. You realize how very old countries in Europe are and the leaders that they have had. Germany had Hitler, and for about 5 years, really longer than that. It's kind of like more like 10, but when you consider the last 5 of his time, that's when it really got very intense, and you had people in concentration camps. I think about a lot of times what it must have been like for those people during that time, if they just thought that it was never going to get better. And it got very, very bad. But I wonder, those people that lived through that time, how many of them just thought, well, there's no point, because he's ruined the country and it's never going to get better. I wonder how many of them just decided it wasn't worth it anymore. And I'm sure there were quite a few. But other people didn't. And you see what happened with Germany. It became Europe's powerhouse. I'm not saying we don't have problems here. But it developed into a country where many people anyway, not everyone, but many people are fairly well educated and empathic, sensitive, intelligent. I'll give you an example. On Saturday, my husband and I, Bill, we took some artwork to a picture framer in the town where we live. And I was excited because my father was a picture framer after he retired from the Air Force. He owned his own custom framing shop. And I grew up basically watching him frame pictures. And so we go in there, and we had 4 paintings that we picked up on travels and some artwork that a friend of mine recently did. A guy that had fostered our dog, Aaron. And it ended up being, we started talking to the proprietor about what's going on now. One thing I really have noticed and like about Germany is that people are very well educated, and they're very in tune with world events, and they're logical and reasonable. And sometimes I feel like I have to apologize for what's going on. But these people have had leader, like Hitler. They had Hitler, so everybody here learns about what happened in World War II, and they visit the camps, and they have policies. What Elon Musk did, that would never fly here. He would get arrested. So they don't want that here. They learned from it. I hope Americans will learn. And I think that there are enough of us that will. I have to believe that. But anyway, it turned out to be a very pleasant and positive interaction. Of course, it helped that we were going to be dropping about 800 or 900 euros on all this artwork we're having done. And it's not the first time that we have bought, like my husband bought me a great sculpture there. It's very weird art, and definitely not for everyone. I'll even put in a picture. But we've also spent money on framing there before, so that we're good for business. But also, these are decent people and they're empathic, and they are descended from people that lived through World War II and a leader who was a fascist and cruel. And they eventually made it better. I mean, in his own way, Trump may end up making America better. But it won't be through any of his policies. And you just need to keep in mind that even he is not immune to what happens to us all. So I hope that made sense. And I will leave you with a funny quip that I saw this morning. A janitor asked me if I'd like to smoke some weed with him. I declined because I don't like high maintenance people. Have a good Monday. See you next video.